Let me first tell you that I'm quite happy to talk to you, but I haven't spoken English for quite a while now, since I'm retired for about 2 years. And therefore, it's going to be a bit slower than my colleague, Mr. Newman, who's so fluent. With time, if you don't use, you slowly start to lose. And that's life. I have one goal. We have to make sure that all patients at the end of their lives have the proper treatment to be comfortable. And if we fail that, we get into a big problem. And I will go with you, because there's the audience is mixed, through a few concepts that I think are important here. I have no conflict of interest. The end of life is a unique opportunity for growth, personal growth, family growth, community growth, but only if the patient is comfortable. If you're not comfortable, if you are in pain, you take the sheet you put on your head and you disappear in your bed and you're not there and you're not communicating. Therefore, palliative care are required to have patients who are absolutely comfortable. Nothing is possible without comfort, and this is and if we fail that, something very important occurs. Family, which is powerless because the father, the mother is there in pain, they make a contract with you. They give you the opportunity to make this person comfortable. And if you don't, you breach this contract, and this family become angry. And it's quite all right to be angry, to see our mother or father suffering and nobody doing anything or not doing enough. And what's going to happen? They're going to say never again. And the next time, it will be l'aide médicale à mourir, medical aid to die, because they felt that they've breached this contract. One of the problems is pain. What is pain? And pain is a very interesting situation. We're going to see how pain is modulated, how it's normally wiped out by endorphins, how to prescribe exorphins, routes of administration with an E missing, and neuropathic pain. Rapidly, let me explain you something that everybody probably know. Pain is normal. You have no pain? Yes, you have pain. All of you have pain, because you have a system of pain and the system is on. And therefore, all the time, there's a little signal of pain that goes to your brain. And this signal of pain is simple. This is a nerve. You enter some sodium inside of the nerve, because here there's a loss of sodium, and it enters through the virus receptors. Receptors that's sensitive to acidity or to capsaicin, receptor which is to mechanical stress, various receptors. And when you put your hand on the stove, it burns, you take the hand out. What happens? Suddenly, a lot of sodium gets into the nerve, and there's a huge signal. There's also a signal that comes from various bradykinin, histamine molecules that normally are in cells and not present there, but when they are present there, suddenly there is pain. And this is quite normal. And you see here the sodium getting in, and when it gets in, depolarize the cell. This depolarizing make an excitation. The excitation goes along the nerve, goes to, as a red star, goes to the next neuron. And you see that those neurons do not communicate. So here, I have a train of pain going bloop, 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 stops here. But the brain is on the other side there. So we have to talk to the brain. To talk to the brain, I have to have bloop, 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 bloop here at the same speed than here. How do I do that? Well, little red ball, the yellow balls of glutamate are secreted from this end and taken up by this end with the sodium, and each time this glutamate gets out, the sodium gets in, and there's a second excitation. And that's how pain goes through your brain. But this rain of glutamate is modulated by several influences, including one with opiates. If I increase the opiate level, well, the drops of glutamate disappear, and now I have some red stars here, but much less there. Pain goes, and this is how opiates work. This is another image of the same thing. This is the glutamate in vesicles. Glutamate goes to the side, goes here, finds a receptor in the next neuron, sodium gets in, and the pain is transmitted to the brain. There's various receptors, not only this one, but the others are not used normally. We'll see that at the end of the presentation. So you see here this glutamate getting from one neuron to the other. You see the opioid here, and there are receptors, various family of receptors for opioids, and they decide at what speed the glutamate flux go from one neuron to the other. In other words, at what speed the brain sees. It's a very complex process. You see, every single unit here modulates the pain. So you will be surprised that pain is something that changes. If you're depressed, pain is worse. If you're happy, pain is better. If you do exercise and you have a lot of endorphins, pain is better. It's normally wiped out by endorphins. So I have some pain. This hand tells my brain, blip, 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 blip. I feel no pain because I've got just the right amount of receptor. If I move the hand, blip, 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 bit more endorphin, feel no pain. You walk on my finger, there's not enough endorphin, there's a lot of pain. I have no pain at the present time because it is suppressed by endogenous endorphin. And this is the big beep where you cannot suppress because there's too much signal there for the endorphin. And this is where you start removing your hand from a hot oven.
Just a curiosity, before you were showing magnesium. How is magnesium?
We'll come back to that. Endorphins, they are endogenous morphines. They are made inside of our brain. Not only the brain, also the gut, and also many places, synthesized, and it accumulates in cell, and it's released. If you have some pain, you're going to release some endorphin to alleviate this pain, and this is a perfectly normal mechanism. It's, in fact, an endorphin, amino acids forming a little chain, and this is the key that will get into the receptors for beta endorphin, alpha endorphin, gamma, and kephalin. There's a whole families of endorphin, some of them modulating pain, some of them modulating the humor, the sense of well-being, some of them modulating tranquilization. All these endorphins have the same configuration. They get into the same receptors than morphine. And therefore, morphine acts at the same place than endorphin. And we've called endorphin orphine because of morphine, which was discovered much before the endorphin. But there's a reason why we have the receptor, and the reason is an endogenous reason. It's for our endorphin. And it will remove pain, regulate the rhythm of respiration, appetite, thermoregulation, etc., etc. When the system works, the background noise, blip, 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 is not seen. But if you increase the density, well, you're going to be very aware that pain exists. If you have a high level of endorphin, you feel well. Is it possible to have a high level? Yes. You just have to exercise 30 minutes per day, and suddenly you're much better. And you run every day, and on Saturday it's too cold, it's November, it rains, and you don't want to go, and you get lazy. And at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you are missing your endorphin. You are a monk. You are, yeah, there's something missing in you because you used to have a high endorphins. If you make love, when you move and you have something very reassuring, high endorphin. If you have massages, high endorphin. And you are not surprised that we use circulating bath in certain situations of pain to remove pain by increasing the endorphin. Very useful. My wife has a low endorphin syndrome, fibromyalgia. When I met her, she was taking 25 pills a day. We now have a bain tourbillon, and she gets into this bath and takes 0 pills. What did she do? What did she do? Just increase the endorphin. And if you have this problem, you do exercise and you take bath, and you don't have to take a pill all the time. Sometimes it's not enough. Sometimes you have to have something more. Sometimes it's plenty, and you don't have to take any pill. At the end of life, the endorphin production decreases rapidly. Why? Many reasons. One, don't move anymore. And we've seen that if you jog, you have endorphin. If you don't jog, you don't. If you are staying in a bed for 3 weeks and we want to change the sheets, we turn you around and suddenly your face shows pain. Why? Because you've just been moved. There's nothing wrong in the hands, nothing wrong in the arms, nothing wrong with the feet. What's wrong? Loss of endorphin. And this becomes pain. So at the end of the life, the endorphin production ceases. Less movement and malnutrition because we need amino acids to make the endorphin. This patient in coma that didn't move for a week, well, intense pain at mobilization. And we will provide a little bit of morphine before we change the bed. What for? To precisely replace the missing endorphin. And if you're sick, there's new sources of pain. Not only do you lack the proper endorphin, but you new pain. Metastasis here, cellular swelling. Patients normally have a low sodium. Low sodium means too much water inside of the cell. The cell becomes bigger, compress the nerves, and the pain increases. And what are you going to do with that? We're going to try to see the increase of the pain. You're going to increase the exorphine because there's no more endorphin. So you start some opioids at small doses, and you change that. Exorphins, morphine, and the like, can therefore replace endorphin. And this, what is going to, and pain will respond to these opioids, especially when there's sudden increase in pain and there's not enough secreted endorphins and pain is not alleviated. That's when you have to use exorphine. And you see that exorphins and endorphins are in the same receptors, and if you miss one, well, you can replace with the other. And this will have a positive effect. First, removing pain, but also removing dyspnea. Those are the two main reasons why we prescribe opiates to have patients comfortable. If we have too much morphine, Well, because it regulates respiration, you can depress respiration. And if you have overdosage of morphine, you're going to see that your respiratory rate will go down to 8 per minute, and at the 8 per minute, you start to reverse the effect of the opiates because you enter in a dangerous place. This is very important. Look, this is the zone of the endorphine, and this is the toxic zone when you give too much opiates. See that this box is almost filled by the blue endorphine. You give 1 milligram of morphine, and you're very, very close to this zone. As a well-being, I'm very sensitive to opiates. A small amount of opiates, and I have too much. But if I have no more endorphine, I'm here. You have to fill all that box with morphine before you enter the toxic zone. And therefore, our patients are very resistant to morphine. They don't die because of morphine, and we put just enough morphine to suppress the pain. And this is a very safe procedure. I have fear of the surgical patient who was well yesterday, who has a problem in the belly and I have to operate on. He has a full endorphine package, and if I'm not very cautious, I might overdose him, right? Not very often with our end-of-life patients. We can give morphine even if patient with respiratory depression or problems, if you give the proper dosage. Oh, I'm going to the other side. Okay. Why do we fear morphine? Well, first, because when we start to study any drug, we give it to a normal person. And in normal person, morphine is not a good idea because it's very easy to overcome to have too much of the opiates. The data are not very well interpreted. Patients thinks and family thinks that at the end of his life, the guy received a shot of morphine and then died, and think he died because of the shot. Well, maybe the pain was going up because he was dying. We relieved the shot and he was dead. So the relationship is not clear, but for the family who was not sure that we're doing the right thing, very often they become afraid of that. So you have to explain them. Particularly explain to families what is going to happen. Explain also that the endorphins do not quit rapidly. With time, at the end, whoop, starts getting lower and lower. And when it gets lower and lower, you have to give more and more of the morphine. So with no other pain than the loss of endorphin, the dose of morphine with time rises. And of course, if you have other source of pain, it raises more. Pain is here, you increase the morphine to here, no pain anymore. And perfect brain. I had patients taking 1 gram a day of morphine and having their car and being able to drive the car. It's morphine and safe, if it's well done, there's no problem there. How am I going? You can see here that there's more, plus 30, plus 90, plus 300 morphine at the end of the life. And this is because there is more pain, but also because there is less endorphins. The both reasons are there. So that's why we increase this opiate at the end of the life. Does morphine hasten death? No, not a single bit. You're not dying because you're comfortable. You may have problem if you're not, because pain is high. Then you have heart problem, you have a stomach problem, you have neurological problem, and you die. If you're comfortable, no. In fact, it's been shown that the right amount of morphine extends your life a couple of days, sometimes a couple of weeks. How do we prescribe endorphines? Well, we know that when there is too much, you have a state of euphoria. The patient becomes a bit euphoric, a bit like he has too much endorphin too. And with time, some dysesthesia occurs. What day are we? Oh, what day are we? Wednesday? No, we're not Wednesday, we're Friday. Something that's not clear. What, can you tell me the months of the year? Oh, yes. No, janvier, février, mars, avril, mai, juin, juillet. Can you do that reversed? Oh, yes. Décembre, novembre, octobre, septembre. And there's no R in August. And if you cannot say August, it's because you have an attention deficit. And before you give any new shot of morphine, or before you increase the morphine, you check the brain. How much is 100 minus 7? 93. How much is 93 minus 7? What did you say? How much is 93 minus 7? Doesn't know that 7 is a 3 and a 4, and the 93 you take the 3 out, and then the 4 out, and then it's 86. The brain is not able to do that. If you don't ask this question, you don't know that the patient is already having too much opioids. Understand? This, therefore, is extremely important to if you continue. Well, if you continue, the patient becomes drowsy. He has a very interesting symptom. He has the impression that somebody touches his sapo. Skin, thank you. Touches skin. No, but nobody touches skin, but he has the impression. And that's an effect of too much morphine. And you will not be surprised to say that if this very too much, he will have pain on his skin. And this is going to be the first symptom of a very grave intoxication with morphine or the other like. Of course, if you give all the time too much morphine, the patient becomes adapted to this morphine. And one of the adaptation, because if you take too much morphine, you're going to stop breathing. Well, the brain makes pain for you. So you have no pain and morphine because you're taking that for recreative reasons. With time, it builds some pain. And then there's just enough pain to counteract the morphine. You miss morphine because the pusher is not there. Pain is there. And then you have a big problem. And you can see that our system of reward and our system of pain control are interdependent. And therefore, we're going to be very prudent with the use of opioid in non-terminal conditions. In terminal conditions, the patient is going to be out of this world in 15 days. It's not the same concern that if we're going to live for 3 years, right? So this is also an important to understand. This patient has a lot of pain, 8 on 10, no analgesics. Give a bit of morphine, much better, but still need more shots. Increase the doses, perfect. What we want is this, 99% or 95% of control, not 100%. Why? Because when we have 100% of control, you can have twice, 3 times, 4 times too much morphine, you don't know. But if you stay around 100%, you check the brain, you know that you are in the right attention. And if you increase, you'll finish by have a patient who stopped breathing, which is not what you want to do. It's important to know that if you're in coma, you know the patient has pain. How do you know that? Well, you look at his face, and when his face is grimacing, tense, you know that there's a problem. You look if there is tears in the eyes. You know, at every respiration, there is pain. And a very useful, it's that the members becomes rigid. You take the hand and all the arms go up with it. When you see that, you know that this patient who's in coma most probably has pain. And often he moves in his bed. He looks for a position where there is no pain, and will never find it. And since he doesn't find it, he moves all the time in the bed. So a patient which is tense, which have this, and we have, you know that he is in pain. Louise, come with me. We're going to examine your father. See his face? Yeah? What do you think? Well, something's wrong. We're going to look at his hand. It's very rigid. You know what, Louise? We're going to give a little bit more opioids, and we'll see in 10 minutes together. And we give that, and 15 minutes later we go back and we look at Dad. And Dad has a calm face and is very supple. You know, Louise, you're here with him and he's in coma. You're here because you can watch him. Look at him. And when the face becomes again tense, and when the hand becomes, come and see us. And suddenly Louise is part of the people who looked after father. And when he will die, she will say rightly, I have done everything I could. There is a reason for her to be at the side of a patient which is in coma, which is not always obvious. This is very important to know, that we can know that patients in coma are in pain or not, because we can adjust the medication, and we never want to think that somebody who's in coma has no pain. There's no relation. You were in coma and you have pain. You will have a palliative sedation, an artificial coma. We will still give you the proper amount of morphine, because the coma per se does not remove pain. Clear? Clear. How much morphine? The right amount. You have to titrate, and it's different for everybody. And to prescribe opiates, you will have this in your, you will read this. It's you have to go very precisely, and you have to examine the patient. Question and examine the patient. And if you do that, it goes very well. There's all sorts of calculation to calculate how much morphine is compared to diluted, compared to fentanyl, compared to other drugs, because for some time you have to change over from one to another opiate. And this is how we do it. And we will administrate how? Well, at the end of life, we will administrate the drug by subcutaneous route, a little needle. Why? Because this is the only way we're sure how much morphine goes in. If you give a pill, you never know how much of the pill is absorbed. And patient with problem of the mobility in the gut might not absorb them. Long action, you're not sure that it's degraded. So if you're really at the end of the life, you go every 4 hours. The problem is the following. If you give me a shot of morphine, my morphine goes up and then slowly goes down. When the morphine is almost zero, morphine increases pain. And therefore, after 4 hours, the patient has a rebound of pain, which is the proalgic effect of very, very, very small amount of morphine. And therefore, when I'm at the emergency room, what I will do, I will put morphine in a little bag of 100 ml and give that with a pump at 4 ml an hour. And here I have the drug for 24 hours, and there will be no rebound. And I know that in the emergency room, the nurse will never have the capacity to go really at every 4 hours. So I will make my patient much more comfortable. This is an example. 100 ml of saline, a little bit of diluted, the equivalent of 15 milligrams of morphine, and a bit of Haldol, because there's, when we start this medication of opioid, this gives you nausea. So a little bit of Haldol, no nausea. And now the patient has that under his skin, not in a vein, for 24 hours. He's on a plateau, he's comfortable. After 24 hours, there's nothing left in this little pouch. You make a new pouch, which is going to be fresh, no bacteria, redone, perfect. You can also have, if there is dyspnea and anxiety, some other medication to remove the anxiety and deal. And this is, to me, a very precious way. Not always possible, especially at home. But if you have significant pain problem, this is the way to go. Not this. This is the patch. Why not this? Because when you put the patch, well, the medication, which is fentanyl, has to cross the skin, goes below the skin on the dermis, and then there make a little chamber where the concentration of fentanyl become equal there. And there the transfer stops. But the blood gets through and removes the drug. When it removes the drug, a flux of fentanyl goes down, and you have a very slow going flux of fentanyl to this chamber in the grease. Why in the grease? Because it's the lipids that fentanyl do stock. If you have this and you have no more lipid, well, there is no fentanyl. So you don't want to use fentanyl in the last week of life. And if you have a patch, but there is no circulation because the pressure is low, well, there is no fentanyl. What do? Subcutaneous route. It happens that when you have a lot of pain, this will have an effect on the neuron, and this other receptor called NMDA receptor loses magnesium. When it loses the magnesium goes, and then sodium gets in. Now it gets in without a glutamate, and it gets in without the effect of opiates, because the opiates regulates the glutamate. Here you have a spontaneous sodium permeability. The neuron becomes extremely excitable. And now the minus excitation becomes a problem. You touch the skin and the patient has pain. Well, touching skin doesn't make pain, except if you have a sustained depolarization and a super responsive neuron. And this is what is called neuropathic pain. There is always some neuropathic pain if there is always pain. And therefore, we will always adjoin to morphine co-medication which help to deal with this chronic problem. Sometimes this problem becomes so important, so major, that you have to block the NMDA. And to block the NMDA, it is not very difficult to do. First, you recognize that there is neurotic pain, severe, unstable, painful spikes, allodynia. You know that dysesthesia, there is a problem. And you know that this will have, with time, effect. For example, the neuron will not grow to be very large. And therefore, the allodynia, who was going from here to here, now goes from here to here, because the neuron has grown because of this hyperexcitability. What can you do to do that? Well, this pain is less sensitive to opiates. Why? It doesn't go to the glutamate and the receptor. So we're going to try something else. What's something else? Before I tell you that, let me tell you that prolonged local pain gives this complication. Direct nerve damage gives this complication. And a chronic excess of opiates will also give this complication. But what you want to do, you want to block here. And to block here, there's a very special, this is the NMDA, and this is where the magnesium normally sits. Magnesium goes up. Now the channel is open. Sodium gets in. Incredible pain. But if you put in here, there's a site that accepts methadone. In fact, D-methadone, or accept a ketamine. Then you block this site again. With very small amount of methadone, you block the NMDA site. Now, this methadone is 50% in form L and 50% in form D. The form L is like morphine, 5 times the potential of morphine. The form D, 0 morphine effect, but a potent anti-NMDA effect. With small amount of methadone, you will be able to correct the situation. When do we usually see that? People with cancer of the mouth or of the rectum. Why? Because at some time in the evolution we were like worms with a mouth and a rectum. And we could go this way, the mouth was here, and going this way, the mouth was there. And therefore the innervation of mouth and rectum is extraordinarily important. And when you have cancer there, you directly affect the nerves. And you almost always need some methadone for people who have this rectum or mouth problem. Also, other cancer which takes the nerves, and this produce prolonged pain. We're going to use very small dose because we don't want the morphine part. We just want the anti-NMDA part. We won't remove the rest of the morphine. We'll add a small amount of methadone. This guy is 60 years old. He's been using drugs for recreational reasons for a long time, and therefore he's very resistant to drugs. You can give him a lot of morphine because he became very resistant. He will need 3, 4, 5, 6 times the normal doses. And he has a cancer of the top of his lung, at left lung, with the metastasis in the brain and a severe pain in the arm. So severe that he is not able to lift his arm. And he has a lodynia. You cannot touch the arm. He has an MRI with the evidence of strong expansion of cancer. Already had all the radiation he can. There's nothing to do there. So what does he take? He takes a kind of morphine called dilaudid, 6 milligrams twice a day. That's 20 milligrams per day, plus dosage on top of that, because he's very in pain, 8 milligrams per day. This is 20 milligrams of hydromorphone per day. This is 5 times more potent than morphine. That makes 100 milligrams of equivalent morphine per day, plus Lyrica, plus acetaminophen, and with all that, he's come at emergency and he wants to kill himself because he's too much in pain. We've started a small amount of methadone. I would normally have started with 1 milligram, but because this guy consumes a lot of medication, I started with 3. In addition, with the current opioids. And after 3 days, disappearance of the arm pain, normal arm movement, no evidence of overdose, very well. So it has been a very effective co-analgesia. Pain is reduced not to 0, but much better. After 3 or 4 days, I reduced somewhat the methadone because methadone stocks in the grease, and now I don't need to have this stocking anymore. And I transferred this guy in a chronic hospital. I had to take the right to prescribe because nobody wanted to prescribe methadone in the chronic hospital. So I went myself. And for 2 months, he was very comfortable. And he died comfortable. Methadone co-analgesia has helped to control pain, limit the use of opioid, and protects against hyperalgesia induced by the medication. If this interests you, you can see Controlling Neuropathic Pain, Methadone in Co-analgesia. This is a publication of the Société Québécoise des médecins de soins palliatifs. You can find this document sur le site de Palliative de la Maison Victor Gadebois. Well, we need to train doctors to care for patients, not only for diseases. We need that all doctors become aware of how to do the pain control. We need about 20% of doctors in palliative care that are going to be enough experts that they can serve as consultants for the other when the problem is too great. This is at the moment disappearing. Disappearing because all medical general practitioners need to have a certain number of patients. Now, if you are in palliative care, this is not for you because your patients are there for 15 days. You cannot have this huge list. To have the huge list, you have to be 2-3 days a week at your office. And this is therefore not possible for you to become a specialist in palliative care. We need that. And we need that because there is a right, because of this law, that all the Quebecers have access either to palliative care or to aide médicale à mourir. We need to make the promotion of palliative care. I tell you why. 66,000 people die in Quebec this year. Out of the 66, 15,000 died life front accident in the street or heart stopping in the hospital. No time for palliative care. But there's another 45% who need palliative care. Only 15,000 have. What do we do with the other 30,000? Now, this is a much greater problem than aide médicale à mourir. And we absolutely have to do something about this. Our maisons de soins palliatifs are not enough. They are not paid enough. There's not enough services. Dying at home, which is sometimes possible, not all the time, needs some infrastructure. It's not very dear. We have to do that. We have to actualize the fact that we all have a right to be comfortable at the end of our life. And this afternoon, I will explain you why end of life is such a precious moment for us and for all. I thank you.